Emily Elizabeth, and I'm the host of the What Fulfills You podcast, a show for and about individuals always seeking to be their best selves. On this show, we talk all about building the mindset, finding the right careers, creating meaningful relationships, and so much more. Welcome to the What Fulfills You podcast. Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of What Fulfills You. My name is Emily Elizabeth. I'm your host. And for today's episode, this topic was definitely inspired by this month kind of being known as the season of love or the month of love. And with Valentine's Day around the corner, I wanted to take the time to especially share with those who maybe get a little anxious around this time, or just you get triggered in a certain way with Valentine's Day, and maybe you're single or maybe you are in a relationship. It doesn't really matter, but this is focused on how you can take better care of yourself. And I know a lot of us tend to use the word or framework of self-love. And I would say this is very much all self-love, but I always like to share it in a more practical sense, because sometimes just talking about self-love and saying you love yourself, like that's one thing, but to actually feel it at your core is another thing. And that comes from actually taking action and creating movement in your life towards that. And so I'm going to share with you a few different ways that I've taken actionable steps in my own life over the years while I was in relationships, while I've been single. And again, this can be done whether you are in a relationship or you're single, but in general, this focus is to get better at taking care of yourself, to get better at prioritizing yourself, and ultimately bringing more clarity so that you have that inner peace for your own mental health. So, starting with a very basic fundamental, for me, I have observed through the many years, especially since graduating from college, the best way for me to feel grounded in myself and to feel really connected to Emily is to figure out my own personal goal, separate from any person in my life. Now, to be fair, when I graduated from college, I was single. To be fair, shortly after I graduated from college, so I want to say like 5 months after, I ended a 4-year relationship. It was with the person I was dating from college, and that kind of set me on a new chapter. I think a lot of things happened around the same time. I was living by myself for the first time. I was very happy to do so. I was about to start my first full-time job working in corporate sales, and all at the same time, I decided to end the relationship that I was in with someone for, a few years. And looking back at that point in time to where I'm at now, the one thing that I'm so, so grateful for that also did help build the foundation of where I am is having a goal for myself, having a vision, having something for myself that I just want for Emily, something that I want to get out of this life, something that makes me excited to wake up and get out of bed. Obviously, the goal evolved with time, but I know the basics back when I was just out of college. I knew that I wanted to be able to afford to live on my own. I know that I wanted to excel in my career, that I wanted to apply myself, that I wanted to have bigger things to contribute to. I also know that I eventually wanted to do something in the space of helping other people in the format of a podcast. So at that time, I did have another podcast with a co-host, and shout out to you guys. If any of you guys are listening from that era, I am 100% like hugging you, saying thank you. That is so cool that you still listen to this day. But that is all kind of the general vision that I had for myself. Did I know the steps I was going to take to get there? No. Did I have a timeline? Not really. But did I know the general direction that I wanted to go in? Yes. And I remember, funny enough, when I was still in my corporate job, at the time I was working at this company called ADP, and after 8 weeks of being at the job, they bring you to the corporate headquarters. They fly you out, the whole thing, and you spend like 5 days there with other people in the US who also started in the sales role at the same time. And there it's like basically final training. They kind of really hone down on your sales skills and your pitching and your closing and all of it. And I gotta say, like, yeah, that training was really good. Like, that company has a really good sales program and technique and all of it. All that to say, I was exhausted when I was at this training. I remember that I kept falling asleep, and in order to keep myself awake, I would start to dream and envision what I wanted my life to look like. And I would start to talk about Emily Elizabeth as a personal brand. I started to talk about this podcast before it released. So we're talking, this was occurring in January 2020. And I ended up launching this podcast in March of 2020. Actually, maybe a week before really like COVID and the pandemic and the closing of everything. And so I think that's very telling, right? Like the thing that kept me awake, the thing that kept me alive and motivated to stay awake and quote unquote pay attention was having something to look forward to get something that made me feel excited. And again, keep in mind at the time I was, definitely making under $100,000 a year. I was in this entry level sales role. I had no idea how to monetize online, really. I was like a very beginner content creator. This is, yeah, like I said, early 2020. And all I had was a vision and something that I was working towards. And obviously, if you've been following the podcast for a while, like that evolved with time and I was able to apply myself towards that. But I do notice that a lot of people don't really have something just for themselves where this is for them. This is their goal. This is what they're working towards. This is the thing that lights them up. Again, it doesn't have to be career related, although I find that to be almost like you're killing two birds with one stone if you get to somehow make a living off of it and you really enjoy it. That's obviously a win-win, right? But it could be something really separate outside of your career. It could be just like a really random personal side quest, whatever, but something for you to get excited about, something just for you. And another big reason as to why I find this as a self-love action is because you are ultimately taking care of yourself. You are ultimately designing your life. You are empowering yourself to put yourself out there, to do something bigger than yourself, doing something bigger than the responsibilities you have for other people. I know that all of us have different situations. Maybe at this point in life, you are taking care of someone, or maybe you are now married, or wherever you are at in life. I think that's where it gets tricky sometimes because, especially as women, what I've noticed is that we often get the burden of being in charge of everyone and taking care of other people, and then we don't end up taking care of ourselves. And then if we fall short, then everything else falls short. That's also the irony, right? So obviously for my single girls out there, like if you're just on the track of, I want to take better care of myself, like this might not apply, but I think something to think about in the future, which is like, we all end up extending ourselves a little bit too much in some shape or form. And when we do that, we cannot pour into other people. So it's actually a lose-lose situation when you keep pouring into other people and not into yourself first. Like that's actually not only self-love, in relation to if you're married or if you have a family or something to the degree of like taking care of other people. But if you are not full in that way, if you don't feel light, if you don't feel yourself, if you don't feel like you have purpose just for you, it is harder to be pouring into another person because you're going to be pouring on a more empty gas tank, if you will, right? So that other person or the other people in your life, they can't receive the maximum version of you. And like I said, that's kind of a lose-lose. So that's another way to frame it as well, in case you are someone that gets a little bit, oh, I don't want to be too selfish. I don't want to just be, doing this for myself. Like, no, this is actually kind of part of our human nature. When you take care of yourself first, then you can take care of other people in a much, much better way. The second actionable tip that I would give when it comes to taking care of yourself, and this is now going to be a little bit more pertaining to Valentine's Day, and if you have any slight bit of anxiety or the thoughts that run through your head about being single or not having a Valentine, whatever that may be, I know we often talk about and focus on romantic connection, which, to be fair, I do believe down the road that becomes your most important relationship. And so I do follow the belief of like choose wisely, choose someone that is your partner, your teammate, that it is a partnership, that it's not, like you're constantly giving or vice versa. But all that to say, with the foundation of a fulfilling life, I believe connections and relationships are the foundation of that. And outside of trying to find or build a romantic connection, I notice that my mental health is always in a better place when I feel connected to other people on a deeper level, on a values level. And how I've done that is I have slowly built up a network and community of people around the world that share these values with me, that share these thought processes with me. And truly, I'm able to connect on a normal friendship basis. And that's something that I became very aware of when I went through my very first breakup at the age of 20. And I realized how lonely it felt to not have anyone to go to anymore at that point. Like I just, again, I was 20 years old, so I didn't know what deep friendships felt like, and or the importance of them or the relevance of them and why that mattered so much. And I really hope no one would have to experience that in the same way that I did, but it was such a lonely experience that I remember looking around at my life and I was like, there is no place but up, like up from here. I'm not going anywhere but up and forward. And from that point on, I truly made it a macro goal and like the top purpose of mine to focus on connection, to focus on relationships, to pour into that, to make time for people, to make time in my busy work schedule and whatever that may be. It's like to make time for people, whether they are close to you already or not. If you want to build a closer friendship, if you want to build a closer relationship, make time for those people. And that inadvertently became a form of self-care and self-love because for me, I am telling myself, I love Emily, so I'm going to do the things that bring Emily joy, light, and love. And that will be different for each and all of you. But for me, and I would say this is definitely across the board for all of us, connection in some shape or form that brings light, love, and joy. It keeps you lighter, it keeps you happy, it keeps you excited. Now, it's all about then selecting the right connections, right? That comes with trial and error, that comes with knowing yourself, that comes with like the more you get to know yourself, the more you understand yourself, the better you can tell with your intuition, with your gut, like in certain moments, whether someone is a good fit in your life or not. And so for me, by putting a focus on connections besides a romantic one, I have also made my life more full in that I can have a partner and I can also live my life without a partner. Again, that still goes with saying that to me, a romantic partner, that kind of companion is the most important over time, but it should not be your only one, and you should not feel less or better with or without one. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I'm talking about, is like you should still feel this same level of fullness in your life with or without a romantic partner. And again, I've been on the side of, wow, I feel really empty without my person. And again, this was in my very first relationship breakup. And that learning curve taught me to fill my life with other things, to fill it with other people, valuable friendships, particularly friends that share similar values that could show me and remind me what it means to live a certain way, to live with integrity. That became, it's kind of crazy now that I think of it. Like, I was so like this only at the age of 20 and 21, but I became very mindful of, I remember back in college, like this girl, like she's a lovely person, but one thing that I remember from a gut feeling, I just couldn't align with her in the same way because we just had different habits, just related to personal preferences. And again, to reiterate, when people are like that, it does not mean they're bad. It does not mean they're good. It just means that they might value different things and they're going to embody life in that way, and it's okay to keep them afar or maybe not really involve yourself with that person. That's okay. But I remember as a junior in college when I transferred to my university, I vividly remember thinking that in my apartment, and I was like, okay, well, I don't think this one's it. But again, several years later, I can speak about that. And just remember, it's going to take time. It's taken me, like in the beginning, it took me at least like 2 to 3 years to like really get my footing with these types of connections, but they have compounded and build and they have been built upon over the years. And like 6 7 8 years later, like these friendships, it's so amazing to be able to reference, like, oh my god, do you remember when I told you about this point in my life where I was complaining about this? And I remember, my best guy friend of like 9 years now, like we always chat and we're always laughing, like, oh my gosh, dude, like, do you remember when I was crying about this and really sad about that? And I remember in those moments we both said to each other, because we were both navigating difficult times in life, we were saying, we will go up from here. It can only go up from here. And that's the beauty of connection. So maybe you are not in a relationship or you don't have a quote unquote Valentine this season or this chapter. Just remember that connection and relationships do not only come from a romantic one, they also come from your normal platonic friendships. And it is so worth it to invest in building those up because that is going to be a strong pillar and foundation in your life. And the last and final actionable way that I would recommend for you to take better care of yourself and to prioritize yourself in this chapter of life, especially if you are single, is to put things into your calendar that excite you and to not wait for other people to do it. So, the things that I'm referencing, that could be a pottery class, that could be going to go see a concert, that could be traveling to a certain place that you've always been curious about. All of these things, when you start to do them on your own accord and you put them into your calendar, you plan, maybe you invite a friend, maybe you go solo, it doesn't matter. But when you start to take charge in that way and you realize, like, life is short, if I want these things to happen or if I want these experiences, I need to plan ahead. Once you start to do that, you will feel a very different level of empowerment. And by the way, you should also be able to do this whether you are single or in a relationship, because this isn't about acting single or doing things because you are single. You are doing things because you have curiosity for them, and it makes you feel empowered in your own life, or what I would also say, like more self-directed, right? Obviously, when you are including other people into a specific plan, you have to take into consideration of those other people. But if you are doing something by yourself, or you are taking the lead on an idea or concept, that's a form of telling yourself and showing yourself, hey, I am the director of my own life. I do only have one shot. Like, what am I waiting for? Like, who am I waiting for? Right? Like, the first time that I took my own international solo trip, I went to two cities that I love and have curiosity for. First one was Paris, second one was Milan. And how old was I? I was like 24 or 25. And I just felt excitement. I felt joy. I felt like, wow, this is so cool that I get to go do this, and it is so cool that I'm doing this because I want to. It's been on my bucket list. I've been so curious about it. Rather than waiting like, "Oh, I hope that I can do this if and when I have a partner," or "I hope I can do this if my friends join me." Like, find things that make you feel excited, put them on your calendar, and actually start to go do those things. And again, it doesn't have to be big stuff like doing trips, but it can be small stuff like for me, the things that I do on a weekly basis just to take care of myself, just to feel good in my own solitude. Like it's all random. I know for starters, like I love to go to a cafe, sit down, bring a journal, bring a book, and read. I sometimes will go dine by myself or eat lunch by myself, like wherever. That's something that I love to do. Again, for myself. Other things that are more hobby related, like I do love going to take a pottery class. I do love taking French lessons right now. Like those things are for me. And the beautiful part is that they are in my calendar, they're scheduled. Like I have to make a commitment in advance. And when you start to do that, your mind will start to step into the future self. Your mind will start to step into, okay, this is cool. Like, I'm looking forward to this versus sulking in what you don't have or what you wish were different. That's the interesting part I've noticed when you take action, when you actually start to create commitment towards the things that you want or towards the things that bring you excitement and bring you joy, your psyche also steps into that feeling as well. And so, if you are someone that ever sways between, and by the way, this is going to be normal. Like, I have my moments as well where maybe something's going on or I feel a little bit weighed down or whatever. The moment I take action towards, okay, what do I know that always brings me back to light, brings me back to joy, or what are some things that always gets me excited? For me, it's always planning a little adventure, right? That could be like a weekend trip, whatever that is. And even the general trips, like for me, it's typically like a two for one. I'll take a trip and also see a friend on that trip. So maybe I would go visit my best friends who live in Dallas and live in Austin. Or maybe I will take a trip out to Southern California where I used to live, catch up with my longtime friends, get some work done while I'm out there, get a speaking gig, like whatever, right? And so you can see that it's a process. I think about it, I plan it, I book it, I make a commitment, I put money down, and then I have the thing to go do. I assure you, it's one of the easiest ways to really feel like you are taking care of yourself and that your life is going somewhere. You can't feel progress if there is no action. There needs to be action towards something. And as a reminder, this is self love. It is the concept of speaking in my own to myself. I love Emily so much that I'm going to do this for her. If that reframe helps you get into this and realize like, okay, I'm going to go do this for myself and this is not selfish, then reframe it, right? Write it down every single day. I love, put your name there, right? So for me, I love Emily so much that I'm going to do this to take care of her. I love Emily so much, so I'm going to do this to bring her more clarity. I love Emily so much, I'm going to do this to help improve her mental health. I love Emily so much, I'm going to go work out at 6 in the morning to feel better about my discipline and my fitness health and etc. Just to reiterate, you do not need another person, another partner to feel more fulfilled, to feel more loved, to feel more valuable. You are already that right now. You are that. It's just now up to you to decide, are you now going to step into that and take ownership of your life and take ownership of the direction that you're going in, and to really be like, you know what? Fuck yeah, this is my life. I'm going to do what is best for me, what is going to take care of me. And ultimately, as life often happens, the person or whatever it is that you were initially looking for and then stopped directly looking for will come into your life when you are so focused and empowered in your own life. And for those who have experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. I hope this episode was empowering and a good reminder for those of you who needed a little nudge to take some actionable steps to take better care of yourself. As always, if you enjoy this podcast or you have been learning a lot from anything that I've shared, I do love when you guys share that with me. You give me some feedback. I love all kinds of feedback, so don't be a stranger. You can DM me on Instagram at What Fulfills You or at Emily E. Duong. All of the socials are linked in the show notes. Thank you again for tuning in today. I will chat with you all in the next episode.